Hi, welcome to Module 8. The team came up with possible applications of the model in urban and regional planning. Many of these uses have to do with supporting the goal of decongesting the National Capital Region, attaining balanced spatial developments, and spreading the benefits of development to the other administrative regions in the country. We hope you enjoy the rest of the discussion. Let's get started. We start this discussion with the settlements development question. How can the model be applied in population and urban development? This discussion will cover the following. First, we will have an overview of the population and urban development sector. Second, the sector variables used in the model will be described. Third, we show how the learnings can be applied in the planning process. And finally, we propose sector policies based on the results of the model. We turn our attention to population and urban development in the Philippines. In terms of population size, the Philippines remains one of the biggest countries in Asia and in the world. The total population of the Philippines is 100,981,437 as of August 1, 2015. The nation grew by 8.6 million between 2010 and 2015, and by 24.5 million between 2000 and 2015. The average annual growth rate for the period 2010 to 2015 is 1.72%. This population growth rate is lower than the 1.90 growth rate for 2000 to 2010. Over the years, the Philippines has made real progress in slowing its population growth rate from 2.36% in 1995 to 2000 to 2.04% in 2000 to 2007. The Philippine population growth rate of 1.72%, however, is still one of the fastest in the world. The runaway population growth fuels the rapid urbanization sweeping across the country. Census data from 1970 to 2010 show that urbanization in the country has increased steadily. The change in the definition of an urban area in 2007 adjusted the urbanization level at 42.2%, but urbanization has advanced since then. As of 2015, the Philippine urbanization level, which is measured as the proportion of the population living in urban areas, is estimated at 51%. The urban population has been growing at a faster rate as people migrate from rural to urban areas in search of better employment opportunities. The effects of urbanization have been lopsided. Urbanization in the Philippines has seen some of the country's poorest agricultural regions falling behind cities in terms of progress. Only the urban areas, the so-called drivers of economic growth, receive serious attention from the government in terms of infrastructure funding. In response, private sector investments poured in favored cities, adding to the unbalanced spatial distribution of development. It is unsurprising that the most advanced regions are also the most urbanized and the most populated. Conversely, the least developed regions are mainly rural and sparsely populated, and are often out-migration areas. This observation is corroborated by population census data. It appears that the urban primacy of Metro Manila is sustained, as manifested in the 12,877,253 persons residing in the National Capital Region, which is classified 100% urban. The Calabarzon region, however, is emerging as the biggest region in the Philippines in terms of population, highlighting the economic pull factors of this rapidly growing expanse. This corroborates the observation of a continuing urban-ward movement of rural residents, especially to large urban centers. Young men and women have been moving in droves from the periphery to the center, that is, from farms to towns and cities, in search of employment or livelihood. While the national government jump-started decentralization by building industrial centers in the administrative regions of the country, the rural working-age populations flocked to major urban centers within the region. As a result of this rapid urbanization, urban sprawl and extensive peri-urban development is evident in virtually all cities across the country. Sprawl implies that the average Filipino travels farther to go from home to work and to other places, resulting in a longer and more expensive commute. Urban areas in the Philippines are centers of economic growth, accounting for 75 to 80% of the country's gross domestic product since 2000, with Metro Manila alone contributing nearly a third of the total GDP. The attraction of urban areas and cities is that these provide economic opportunities, which explains the desire of millennials and people of working age to live in these urban spaces rather than stay outside cities where jobs are dwindling. Recent census data show the emergence of secondary cities or small cities where much of the urban growth has happened in the last 10 years. These small cities are defined by the United Nations as cities of 500,000 to 1 million residents. 16 of the 20 most populous cities in the Philippines can be classified as small cities. Looking at the population growth patterns, it is apparent that urban areas in the Philippines are growing faster than the rural areas since 2007. From 2007 to 2010, the population in urban areas grew at an average of 3.59% per year, while that of the rural areas declined at negative 0.33%. From 2010 to 2015, both urban and rural areas grew in population size, with urban areas increasing slightly faster at 1.82% compared to the rural areas at 1.77%. What accounts for the rapid urban growth? The general agreement is that natural increase and migration are the primary sources of urban growth, followed by the reclassification of rural areas to urban areas. About 60% of the urban population growth in developing countries, including the Philippines, is attributed to natural increase, or the excess of births over deaths. The remaining 40% is due to rural-urban migration and reclassification of rural to urban areas. Nonetheless, the share of these three drivers of urban growth, natural increase, migration, and reclassification, has been shown to fluctuate over time in the cities of developing countries. Rural-urban migration is estimated to contribute some 20 to 30% of urban population growth. Its exact contribution, however, is difficult to measure, as migration itself takes many forms. There is short-term, seasonal, annual, or permanent migration. Though migrants often plan to return to their place of origin, most do not go back, at least not permanently. In addition to migration, the reclassification of rural to urban barangays drives urban growth. As migrants move to growth centers, the economic base of barangays is transformed from agriculture to urban-based industries. Rural villages are subsequently reclassified urban. Population increase and changes in the economic structure occur simultaneously. That is, as migrants move to urban centers and add to the resident population, the jobs shift to urban-based occupations, and as in a cycle, these urban centers attract more migrants. It becomes clear that population is related to development. It provides a large pool of productive and creative human resources. It is a magnet for businesses and other activities. It is a potential source of taxes and revenue for a local government unit. It is a basis for the justification of certain projects, such as roads, bridges, and hospitals. And it fosters innovation and adaptation. Population is the object and target of development. It is the basis for determining the level of basic services needed by the individuals of a specific area. For example, health centers, daycare services, schools, roads, water, power, and ICT. It can also be used as a guide to project for the needs of certain groups, such as in the education, recreation, and housing sectors. Population processes, such as fertility, migration, and mortality, lead to outcomes, such as population size, age-sex structure, and spatial distribution of population. These in turn affect various development processes, for example, consumption, savings behavior, and public expenditure patterns. All of these lead to outcomes in terms of income, levels of employment, and health status. The development of human settlements was measured in terms of the following variables: population growth rate, number of households, and population density. Population growth rate is defined as the average annual rate of change of population size during a specified period. Usually, the population enumerated at 2 consecutive censuses. The population growth rate measures how fast the size of the population is changing. It is usually expressed as a percentage. A household is a social unit consisting of a person living alone or a group of persons who sleep in the same housing unit and have a common arrangement in the preparation and consumption of food. Population density is measured as the number of persons over a unit of land area. In addition, we also measured urban growth rate, which is the rate of growth of the population in urban barangays. We measured urbanization level, which is defined as the percent of population in urban barangays. Migration refers to a permanent change of residence that requires crossing an administrative boundary from the place of origin to the place of destination. Since the Philippines has no migration database, planners use a straightforward method in estimating the rate of migration. This involves deducting from the population growth rate of an area, say the municipality, city, or province, the PGR of a bigger area of which it is a part. For example, suppose we wish to estimate the migration rate of Quezon City. We get its population growth rate, which is 1.17% for the period 2010 to 2015. We deduct from this the growth rate of Metro Manila, which is 1.58%. The result is negative 0.41%, which indicates slight outmigration. These variables measure the concept of growth of settlements. They are the dependent variables in the framework used in this model. We now show how the model can be applied in urban and regional planning. You may recall at the beginning of this course that this settlements model has the following potential uses. It identifies significant drivers of urban growth in the Philippines. It offers a tool to identify new growth areas in a region, province, city, or municipality. It provides a methodology to estimate future housing need and housing demand, the suitable location of housing projects, and their affordability. It serves as a tool to simulate future urban expansion and land uses at the LGU level. And we believe it can be applied in the local planning process to guide spatial and development strategies. Given that planning is essentially a public function, it is instructive to examine the actions that national and local governments can take in order to achieve sustainable urban development. Here are a few insights. After the growth areas have been projected in a planning area, it would be useful to validate the results with existing plans, such as the Comprehensive Land Use Plan and the Comprehensive Development Plan. If the projections are consistent or similar, the following can be done. First, identify the role of the fast-growing LGU and the other constituent LGUs in the planning area. Second, validate the growth nodes and their impact areas. Third, increase government expenditure to develop and sustain these nodes. And last, link these nodes spatially and economically. Attract migrants to the fast-growing provinces, cities, or municipalities by building upon their pull factors or determinants of urban growth. These pull factors draw people to a particular destination. In many cases of rapidly growing areas, these pull factors include greater economic opportunities, effective and efficient infrastructure, and enhanced access to basic services. In general, immigration to a growth area speaks well of it. This means that the locality has characteristics that attract migrants who can be tapped as a potential workforce. Aim for mixed and compatible land uses that increase social heterogeneity and generate economic densities. An area intended for settlement can be planned such that it is supported by compatible land uses, especially those that allow social, economic, infrastructure, environment, and institutional activities and services. For example, a residential zone should have social and economic infrastructure, especially employment, livelihood, education, health, social welfare, and recreation infrastructure. The residential zone itself can offer a mixed typology of low, medium, and high-density housing. In addition, the city or municipality should provide a housing mix for different income classes and tenure types, with a special attention to affordable and decent housing for its burgeoning population. The model builds on existing methodologies in the Philippines on projecting populations and shelter need. The model adds a spatial component to these statistical projections. First, the model prescribes suitable locations of the projected additional population. Second, the model calculates the needed land area for the projected additional housing units and pinpoints ideal locations for them. Third, the model simulates urban expansion of a local government unit using assumptions and spatial factors that can be modified and weighted. So how do we attain sustainable urban development? The model offers a few policy and strategy recommendations. Support emerging and secondary towns for planned development by linking them with the fast-growing areas or growth nodes. Because development does not occur evenly across a spatial region, Government needs to back up secondary cities and emerging municipalities. This can be done by facilitating the cluster development of regional capital cities, highly urbanized cities, or rapidly urbanizing areas, with these emerging towns as the next planned growth areas. This will require improving the competitiveness of secondary or intermediate cities, which are cities of 500,000 to 1 million residents, and bolstering their infrastructure development. Regional planning can attract migration towards emerging towns whose pace of urbanization can still be controlled. The benefits of migration, especially when dealing with migrants of working age, can thus be enhanced through a planned province, city, or municipality. And when settlements are planned, they will be located in suitable areas, and the population will have access to housing, income, and livelihood, utilities, and transportation. The possible strategies for managing the spatial distribution of population and directing internal migration are the following: managing land use, allocating land rights, promoting economic diversification and competitiveness in rural areas. Addressing the uncontrolled migration from rural to urban areas entails developing infrastructure as well as generating economic opportunities in less developed, less urbanized, and less populated regions. This means that support should be given as well to suburban areas, where the population works in the agriculture sector but lives in urban barangays. When adequate services are provided in these suburban areas, the residents no longer need to go to the city. Pursue in-city compact development. The growth in many Philippine cities is characterized by urban sprawl, in which expanding business and commercial districts tend to ease out residential and industrial areas. Sprawl is a manifestation of poor planning. To counteract urban sprawl, compact development can be pursued. New settlements can be planned as complete, compact, in-city communities. Compact development has several advantages. A greater number of households can be accommodated in a limited land area. This frees up land for neighborhood-scale commerce, parks, pocket gardens, walkways, and common public spaces. It encourages mixed land use, for example, mixed residential commercial use in a building or area. And because of its in-city location, the accessibility to income-generating activities and basic public services is increased. Finally, it promotes walkability and enhances social interaction. Encourage local governments to reserve land for socialized housing. The issue of housing will always be connected to the availability and location of land. In 1992, the Urban Development and Housing Act placed the responsibility of socialized housing to local government units. Hence, local governments can be proactive in meeting shelter demand, even for resettlement, by land banking or reserving land for affordable housing projects. In this manner, settlement areas can be planned ahead, giving communities a chance to choose an acceptable location that will not deprive them of accessibility to sources of livelihood and to economic activities. This will also enable the local government to integrate the development of housing and resettlement projects in the long-term land use plan and development plan of the town. Assign local governments a more proactive role in urban planning. Local governments should take the lead in developing new urban centers, preferably out of existing blighted areas, but with a more balanced concern for low-income housing. This can hopefully correct the current situation in which big developers lead in land banking and master planning new frontiers in the expanded urban areas. These new developments, while beneficial to the economy in general, are done at the cost of converting agricultural lands and with little regard for the need of the low-income and ordinary wage earners. Local governments are encouraged to forge public-private sector partnerships, especially in housing, but government should retain its lead role in planning. The leadership of the local chief executive in achieving sustainable urban development is essential. The governor or the mayor is the primary manager of the local government unit, the lead builder of a sustainable settlement, and the champion of inclusive and sustainable development. Any model or plan, no matter how finely crafted, will be rendered useless if it is not implemented or applied. As the local chief executive, he or she can decide to use implementing tools in shaping settlements and allocating resources for them. I hope this session has provided you with a useful application of the settlements model in the population and urban development sector. You are now prepared to learn about its other practical uses in the rest of the sectors. Thank you.